Hey everyone, so today we're going to be answering all of your questions, and we're going to do I guess you can call it a 300 subscriber special Q&A video, my first Q&A, so you'll learn a lot of interesting facts about me and about my machines and just about washers in general. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video and let's go ahead. So our first question is, what are the cons on the LG? Now, assuming you mean the LG that I have, the LG F1496AD5, I think the biggest con for me has to be the wall cycle and the fact that it is not good at cleaning, basically. Now, in case you don't know, the wall cycle is just, it barely tumbles, to say the least. If you've seen my video on it, you'll know what I mean. But yeah, it's just not efficient enough to either wash or rinse the clothes, like, at all. I guess you could say that some people would consider the knocking as a con, because obviously when it's spinning, you know, all LGs make a knocking sound. It's just the shock absorbers. That's just how they are on all LG machines. The dry fan's really loud as well, so that's a similar thing. And yeah, I'm sure there's more. Oh, and the sensing's a bit off as well, because obviously it detects the weight at the start of most wash cycles. The sensing can be quite off sometimes. Like, you fill it out to the top and it'll detect, like, I don't know, maybe a 4 or 5 kilogram load, like, even if it's full to the top. So that's a little off. But yeah, that's all I can think of. Obviously there's probably more, but yeah, that's a brilliant question, so thank you for that one. Our next question is, will you film every combination on future machines too? Now, I would say no. The only reason I'm filming every combination on the Beko is because the Beko's only got 74 possible combinations as it is, like just 74 full cycle combinations, which you can actually do. It's quite limited on what you can do, and also I can only work with the Beko and the LG. Like, that's the only two machines I can work with until November, which is the main reason why I'm filming every combination on the Beko, so that I have enough videos to take me until November, alongside the LG videos, of course. So the LG I'm not doing every combination on, but it's going to be quite a fair amount of the combinations, obviously, because the LG has like at least 400 possible combinations you could do. I'm not doing all of those, and any future machines that I get from like November onwards, I'm probably just going to do the main cycles, which means like one temperature for all of the main cycles, and for like some special washes I'll probably redo some cycles like I do now. Obviously stress tests I'll use the design cycles, but no, I don't think for future machines, unless they really have quite limited combinations, then no, I don't think I will. Our next question is, worst machine ever used? Now, my answers for this one are going to be very limited at the moment, because I've not used a lot of machines. Well, that's a lie, actually. I have used a lot of machines, but not enough to, like, not a lot that I can actually remember, like, how they function and what they do, and definitely not enough for me to answer that question properly, based on seeing full cycles. So if I list the machines that I have seen full cycles on, so that's the Hotpoint WD420G, obviously, which I did have as like the first ever machine I remember, and then the Hotpoint WD-AL8640G was the one that came after the WD420, and then obviously the LG, which is the one I've got now, LG F1496AD5, and then the Beko WM74135W, and the Beko WMB714422W. Now, those are the 4, maybe 5 or 6, I can't remember how many I said now, machines that I've seen full cycles on. Out of them lot, I have to say, out from experience, like just based on personal experience from them, the Hotpoint WD-AL8640G was the worst one. Now, I know that kind of it's kind of like the opposite of what I would usually say, because I think some of you were probably expecting me to say maybe the Beko just because of how many criticisms I have of that machine, but actually the Beko is pretty good. It's fairly reliable. Like, it's gone for nearly 8 years now. But the Hotpoint we had, the Hotpoint WD-AOS40G, it had a lot of like factory problems. Like, it was defective from the factory. The engineer man even said that himself when he came around. This was years ago. This was back in like 2012 or something. So basically the concrete weight shattered and fell off. The dryer box wasn't even screwed on properly, so that came off pretty quickly. The drum spider snapped because it wasn't built right, and the PCB died, which is the one thing that the engineers should have replaced to start with, but didn't for some reason. We had the motor tachometer die, so obviously it was jumping around a little. We had the entire motor itself die after that, so it wouldn't do anything after that. We had the pump go once, and what else did we have? Pretty much you name it and we had it on that machine. But would I buy that machine again? Yes, that was literally a faulty model. I would love to give that machine another go, but you never know what's coming in the future, so maybe stay tuned and another one might be coming. Our next question is, what made you start YouTube? Well, a long time ago, actually, more than a few years, a long time ago, I found this YouTuber called Witchwasher2007, and I am 100% sure all of you have heard of him. He's the biggest washing machine YouTuber in the whole of the UK, and probably the biggest on YouTube at the moment, actually, or at least one of the biggest. Anyway, he was the first channel I watched about washing machines. In fact, he was the first channel I watched on YouTube, like entirely the first channel I watched on YouTube, and he's always been an inspiration to me. Like, if you ask me who my favourite YouTuber is, it's probably just going to be Witchwasher, because he has like top quality content. His editing's on point, and don't get me wrong, he edits pretty much every video to put like little captions in saying exactly what's happening. For example, rinsing and final spin. He even puts the spin piece on as well, and he does very good wash races and spin races. So that's where my inspiration comes from to start YouTube. I did see other people before I started YouTube. Who else did I see? I used to watch Blanky974 as well, and many others, but I just remember those two because they stood out to me the most, and it's kind of where my inspiration for some of the stress tests and the idea to do wash races, spin races, etc. That's where the inspiration behind that comes from. So yeah, if you somehow haven't heard of Witchwasher2007, I strongly recommend you go check him out because he does make good content. The next question is, what do you hate about your Beko? Now, I wouldn't say there's a lot of things that I hate about it. There's a lot of things I dislike about it, but there's only a few things that I hate about it. Now, one thing, let's start with the dislikes first. So, my main dislike is the cycle times aren't long enough. Like, it'd be alright if it was variable. It is semi-variable, because obviously you've got quicker wash, but that's only available on like probably about 6 of the 11 cycles, and it only cuts the rinse off. It doesn't change the wash time much, apart from in about 3 combinations. But the wash times in general just aren't long enough. Like, if I want to wash towels, for example, on a long wash, the longest I've got is Baby and Toddler 90 with pre-wash, which is 2 hours and 57. Which, alright, 3 hours is a decent time for towels. But what about if I want a 4-hour wash or something? That's just my personal dislike. I'm sure other people would be like, but that's good, it does short cycles. Considering its age, the cycles are relatively short. The next thing is, it can use very high water levels, but it can also not use enough water. Now, the Beko I've got doesn't have a sensor in it, so it doesn't have a load sensor. So basically, it sticks to pretty much one water level on the timed fill. Now, obviously, if it needs more water, it will try and bring in more water, because it does refill on both rinses and the main wash, and the pre-wash too, but sometimes it just doesn't recognise that there's not enough water to wash the clothes properly in there, and especially like on the main wash itself. The main wash itself is the part of the cycle most likely to not have enough water in it. The rinses are generally fine because it does top up after about 2 or 3 minutes of tumbling, realising that there's not enough water in it. The pre-wash is usually fine because it's just literally a pre-rinse. It's cold and it doesn't do a spin afterwards. So if the pre-wash doesn't have enough water, it doesn't really make a difference because the main wash will just make up for it. But yeah, I think the main wash is the worst for that. Another thing I dislike about it is it doesn't really care about imbalances with a full load. So, but it's too sensitive for smaller loads. Let me explain. So, you may or may not have seen my bath mat and fast wash test with the Beko and with the LG. Now, you'll notice there's about a 2-hour difference between the two videos, with the LG being just over 1 hour and the Beko being just over 3 hours. Let me clarify, the cycle I used on Beko was 10 minutes shorter than the cycle I used on the LG. So I used a 50-minute cycle on the Beko, and I used a 1 hour and 4-minute cycle on the LG. The LG pretty much did it with like no concerns other than it limited to 800. But the Beko on the other hand well, I won't exactly spoil it, but let's just say it had a few issues balancing. Now that was very unlike Beko. I was very surprised actually. But you've seen the bedding and towel spins, like when I wash bedding and towels together, even just towels on their own, you've seen that. They can get quite violent, and it will only do that with a full load. So I'm going to class that as just very intermittent balancing and very illogical balancing as well. Because sometimes it rebalances perfect balance in order to make it more unbalanced than to just spin that anyway and not really care. And this is another personal one, but I feel like the brush motor is a bit too quiet. Like, it's only 64 decibels at 1200, which is very quiet actually for a washing machine. Whereas if you compare it to my old Hotpoint WD-420, which was probably upwards of 75 decibels on 1200, is quite a difference. Like, it's noticeable, and I think I would prefer a louder motor in it, but you know, that's a personal preference. I'm not going to blame the machine for that. That's just something that I would prefer. Now, what do I hate about it? Now, yeah, hate's a very strong word. I'm sure people say that a lot, but if there's something that I hate about the Beko, it's that annoying thing with the timings on the Ecos and Eco cycle. It will skip from 3 minutes downwards to 0, and that has to be the most annoying thing on the machine, and just the programming in general. Like, the 6-minute anti-suds is pretty much useless. Like, it does that on every cycle. That's not a fast cycle or a delicate cycle. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Why? It's just there. But yeah, programming definitely needs to be improved, but it is quite reliable, so I'll give it that. My next question is, would you be able to find the WD-420G sometime? I really hope so, actually. I don't know if you know, but the WD-420G probably has to be one of my favourite machines ever. And I really do hope I can find it, like, generally. I've heard that they're very common, but I've also heard that they're quite rare. And obviously, because as it's getting older, I imagine it's going to become rarer and rarer. I've heard that bearing failure is quite common on those machines, which is partly because of their age, because they must be coming up to 14 years old now. Some of them, maybe 14 at the youngest. I know they were out between sort of like 2004 to about that time, 2004. I might be mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I really do hope I can find a Hotpoint WD-420G. That would literally be one of my main goals in the washer collection complete. So yeah, hopefully so. My next question is, do you prefer a machine balancing for 20 minutes or just spinning everything first try? Now, this one is interesting. This, for me, depends on entirely what the load is and how unbalanced it is. If we're talking like bedding and towels, where it can get quite unbalanced, I would take it balancing for 20 minutes over anything. Because I would rather have a machine that spins sensibly than a machine that just spins recklessly. I'm one of those people. If we're talking about like very, very slightly unbalanced loads, then I would rather it just spin it first try. Because if it's not unbalanced enough to cause damage, then why not just spin it? Because that's what logic should be in machines. Like this is like comparing the Beko and the LG, in the sense that Beko will eventually just spin whatever unless it's a single item. Because you've seen the bedding and towel spins, you've seen the extreme unbalances. As LG, on the other hand, it's never got even half as unbalanced as Beko has. It's never hit the glass, never jumped. So it's pretty much comparing them two. LG being the sensible spinner, Beko being the not so sensible spinner most of the time. But yeah, no, I think in general I'd just prefer it to balance everything for 20 minutes. Or at least attempt rebalancing it, and then spin it with a reduced speed if it can't rebalance it properly. I don't like it when machines skip the spin, unless it's dangerously unbalanced, in which case I'll allow it. The next question is, what will the next machine be? Well, this is an easy question. The answer to that is, you're going to have to wait and see. Now, I'll give you a few clues. There should be 2 coming in November. So, hopefully, assuming everything goes to plan, I'll be having one that I think a lot of people will like, and one that's not going to be so popular. So that, you may be able to guess at least one of them, just judging by the hints I've given you. Or you may be able to guess both of them, if you have a really good idea of the general like brands that people like and general brands that people dislike. But yeah, one that most people will like and one that I think most people will dislike. So stay tuned for that. No other information is going to be given. I like to keep it all a surprise, so I want the unboxing videos of the machines to be the first view anyone gets of the machines, and the first like even clue that anyone gets of them. So yeah, stay tuned for that, hopefully about November, maybe December time, but towards the end of the year. The next question is, machine you miss the most and plans for future machines. Well, half of that I've already answered in the previous question, so I'll just reiterate that slightly, the second half. Plans for future machines, one that I think a lot of people will like and one that I think most people will dislike. Not giving specific information, but I expect them, hopefully, both to be coming. Well, me to be able to order both of them towards the end of the year, and hopefully make some videos on them before the end of the year as well. Now, the first half of this question, machine you miss the most, has to be the Hotpoint WD420G, and to some extent the Hotpoint WD-AO8640G, even though I didn't have a particularly great experience with that one. But I love the design of them, and I really love how they smell when the dryer box is on. It just smells lovely, those Hotpoint washer dryers. They have the best smelling dryer in the world. Yeah. So the next question is, do you like the more expensive Bekos? Now, yes and no, I'm going to say to this. I think the design looks quite good actually. I think the white on black of the higher range ones looks quite nice. Like the black display and then the white body itself. I don't know much about the programming, so I won't mention the programming, but on the whole I think the design of it looks good. The inverter, I don't really know. I'm undecided on whether I'm keen on the inverter or not, but all I can say is I like the design because I'm not really familiar with them at all, and I don't want to make myself familiar with those, and I think that's a different question actually, so I will leave that for the time being. Alright, the next question is, will you get an experiments machine soon? I don't know. is the simple answer to that one. I myself am not too sure what's coming in future. If I find a decent second-hand machine that I can obtain, then perhaps, or maybe if I find, or maybe find out with a machine that just breaks by itself, like maybe one of the cheaper ones that I get, or even one of the more expensive ones that I get, and they just break beyond the point of repairing them, like when they're non-economically repairable. I may use that as an experiment machine, but at the moment I don't know, is all I can answer to that one. The next question, favourite detergent? Well, my favourite types of detergent, we'll start with that, are pods and liquid. I do like powder for whites and towels, that I will use powder for that, but in general I'm a pods and liquid type of person. And obviously when using pods and liquids you have to make sure you run maintenance washes more often, because I'm sure you know what liquid and pods can do. If particularly pods, if you don't look after your machine properly or running hot washes, I'll give you a hint, it's something to do with build up of stuff. But my favourite actual brand of detergent, I'm not too sure on actually myself. I think the Allmap Tropical Lily powder smells quite nice actually. I like the Lenor Summer, is it Summer Breeze? Yeah, Lenor Summer Breeze pods and the Spring Awakening ones as well. And what's the other one? Surf Tropical Lily and Ylang Ylang powder. Well, yes, powder and liquid as well. I think they have to be my favourites. The next question is dream washroom, and what brands and models would you have in there? Well, my dream washroom. Well, obviously it has to have the Hotpoint WD420G. I would also have the LG F14968E5 in there. My two favourite machines in the world at the moment they are. I would probably also put the Hotpoint WDAL 8640G in there. I want at least one Hisense in there. I want a Midea-owned bush in there. I love them. I love Midea-owned bushes. I want a Vestal. Ideally a Swan SW... I forgot the model number. SW2051R I think it is, but I may be mistaken on that model number. I will check, and if I've got it wrong, I'll edit it in place of that. But anyway, I want a... What was the other brand? I want an AEG in there as well. AEG Series 7. 7000 rather. That's probably my dream washroom. And in terms of dryers, a Hotpoint CTD 40G. I want that in there to match the Hotpoint WD420G. I want White Knight C37 AW. And I want an LG dryer to go with the LG F14968E5 washer dryer. Next question is, what is one thing you dislike about the LG? Well, there's a few things actually. I don't like the wall cycle. I think I've answered that in the first question. Pretty much everything else I've already stated. I don't like the way it handles suds locks either. I have to say, without doing too much spoilers for the Extreme Suds test, I feel like they could have improved the suds lock handling method. Basically, if you're unaware, LG it will try and accelerate into a suds lock. Like if it's suds locking, it will give it acceleration a go, but it's a bit like if it detects a 2-1 spin. If it detects a suds lock during acceleration, it will just slow back down, and then it will retry it, and it will do that for quite a while. Like probably about 5-10 minutes before it decides to activate a rinse, I think, if I remember correctly. And then it will just keep doing that. So that's why I'm not too fussed about doing the Extreme Suds test in the LG. However, I'm still going to do it because all machines need to do the Extreme Suds test. And I'm just hoping it won't take like 50 years to complete. So I think if I have to say one thing I dislike about the LG the most, it's how it handles suds locks. So when is the next machine coming? I've pretty much already answered that. That's November, December, sometime around then. There should hopefully be 2 of them, so stay tuned for that. Favourite machine? Again, already answered this. Hotpoint WD420G and the LG F1496 AD5 are my favourite 2 machines. What got you into washing machines? Well, it all started actually when I was really young. So we're talking about like pretty much a few weeks old, maybe a few months old. I apparently crawled up to the washing machine and I used to stick my head into like the glass bowl area and just watch, like just stare at the clothes going round and just watch and be very excited about them. That was when I was a few months old, and I gradually got more and more into them. I started using it by myself when I was quite young as well, and by the time I was about maybe 7, I knew basically how to do it completely on my own, and maybe like, and by now I can use any machine. Like I could pick up on any machine. Just by looking at it, I can work out how any machine works. Even a Bosch Series 8, which is probably the most advanced out there at the moment. Maybe wrong, I may be right, don't know. But yeah, I could also remember. What could I remember? I remember using the Hotpoint WD420G a lot. That was the first machine I ever remember using. I think that's maybe the one that got me most into washing machines because it has the most interesting spin patterns, especially after the main wash. Now, I leave that up to you to find a main wash sequence because I don't currently have that machine of my own, and I'm not going to use someone else's videos because that requires getting their permission. But either way, if you know what it's like, then you'll see why I like it. The final spin as well. That final burst from the final increase from 600 to 1000, then to 1200, that has to be perfect. And then it just got increasingly more interested after that, and after finding like Witch Washer and everything else, which was before the Hotpoint WD420. So yeah, that's basically what got me into washing machines. There is a lot more to it, but too long to explain. So yeah. Can washers wash themselves? I mean, technically yes, because obviously if a machine powers through a suds look too much, and it will eventually come leaking out the drawer, all of the soap. Technically that will clean the front of the machine. Like if you wipe it off afterwards, it's then technically cleaned itself with its own soap. But if you don't clean it off, it might leave a few streaks behind. So technically yes, but also technically no at the same time. They can clean the inside of the drum completely by themselves. That's washing themselves, so that's where the yes comes from. But all of the outside and the dust inside around the components, no. So that's a yes and no answer. This question has a bit of a backstory to it. Will you ever get a Hotpoint Ultima WT721? Because it was the machine I had when I was 4, but now the motor PCB and glass is broken because of baseball bats and rain. It was scrapped a very long time ago. Now, I think the thing that most stands out to me when I read this is a baseball bat and rain. Obviously, it's pretty obvious what the rain did. It caused water damage. But I'm kind of intrigued as to what exactly they did with the baseball bat. I'm assuming they managed to smash something. Like the glass is probably what's been broken by the baseball bat. But it's quite intriguing the way that this is worded. But to answer the question, will I ever get a Hotpoint Ultima WT721? Maybe. I do love that range. That's the WFWT and WD range of Hotpoint. I mean, maybe. I don't know. You have to stick around because obviously there's so many machines out there. I don't know what I will get and what I won't get. So, yeah, you have to just stick around is the answer to that one and find out, hopefully in the future. Do you like your Beko WM74135W? Do I like it? Yes. It is a very reliable machine. It's done really well. It's never had a replacement part in the 8 years that it's been here. And yeah, on the whole, it's just a very, very good machine for the price. It wouldn't have been more than £250 brand new, I wouldn't have thought. It's because a fairly cheap brand to start with. Well, back in that time it was anyway. They've become slightly more expensive nowadays with the more modern ones. But back then it was one of the cheapest, and yeah, it can't be more than 250 when we bought it. But I have to say, it obviously has quite a few weaknesses, quite a lot of drawbacks, but you kind of expect that with a cheap machine. But on the whole, I would say the positives kind of outweigh the negatives, or at least equal the negatives. So, would I recommend it? Yes, it's certainly worth buying if you don't have, like, if you see a second-hand one, and you just need a quick replacement washing machine. I'd say yeah, go for it. It is a good machine to have. Like, it does the job. It cleans the clothes, and well, it doesn't. It's not the best at removing stains. I will put that out there, but it can clean a fair amount of stains off. Like, I've had it clean pen ink off before, and that's quite hard to remove. But it won't clean a tomato sauce stain off, just to let you know. But yeah, so do I like it? Yep, I'd say yeah, I do. What new wash cycle would you create, and what would it be like? I'm thinking about this, and I was thinking I'd probably create a few different ones. First and most important would have to be the blanket cycle. Now, I have a fair share of blankets. Now, the type of blanket I'm talking about is actually this weighted blanket. So, I would create a weighted blanket cycle, pretty much, just calling it blankets, and it can be for all different types of blankets. So, like my polyester single item test blankets, up to this weighted blanket, and obviously heavier ones as well. Another one I create is the single item cycle, where it literally manages to cope with a single item, and it's programmed to just wash a single item pretty much. An underwear cycle would be very helpful as well. That could be like a type of hygiene cycle. And I'd love there to be this sort of hygiene standard cycle with then baby care and underwear, socks as well, and towels and allergy care all streaming off of it. That would be a very nice feature. And a polyester cycle as well. I know they're synthetics, but that's a lot of different type of materials. And polyester is very common, so I'd love there to be a polyester cycle. And a jumper cycle as well. I think a jumper cycle would be a very good addition to washing machines. Assuming none of those cycles already exist. Obviously, I haven't seen them if they do exist, otherwise I wouldn't be saying them here. So, if they do exist, let me know. It would be very interesting actually to see any of those cycles in action. So, yeah. This next one is quite short. It's just, how are you? I'm alright. Yeah. Just average, really. How about you? How are all of you guys? That's the more important question. What do you hate in the washer community most? This one's easy, but it's quite long at the same time. So, the washer community is a place where people are supposed to come together to share their interest in washing machines, washer dryers, and tumble dryers, and dishwashers and things like that. Just things that wash stuff, basically. And it's supposed to be a nice place where people accept others' opinions and people get along with each other and talk about their combined interest in washing machines, things like that. But unfortunately, it's really not like that. In fact, it's almost the polar opposite. Like, we've turned into a community that just doesn't accept other people's opinions and tries to pretty much force everyone into buying one particular brand, which I'm not going to mention. But if this isn't a community, that's not what a community is. We need to learn to respect each other's opinions and, obviously not moan at people for buying the machine that they want to buy. Like, say for example, someone bought a Hotpoint after all of the fire risk things that's happened, and everyone's immediately on their case saying like, oh my god, why have you bought that? That's gonna burn your house down or something. Like, it's their choice. They paid for it at the end of the day. Let them do what they want to do. Like, I think that's the thing I hate most in the washing community, that people just can't accept that everyone's different and whatever they want basically goes. That's not how the world works. That's never been how the world works, and it never will be how the world works. So, we've as a community we've got to learn to grow up, basically, and that's where I'm going to leave this discussion. Which of your cats is your favourite? Now, I wouldn't use favourite. I'm not going to use favourite here. I'm going to say which of my cats am I closer to. I'm closer to Dimple. Now, if you don't know, Dimple's the one with darker fur, and he is the one with the red collar on the red love heart on his collar, and Haig's got the purple one. Now, Dimple actually was the one that I came close to first. The first one I stroked, the first one I cuddled, mainly because he was when their man brought him over to test whether the cats basically liked it there or not, and whether it was a suitable place for them. This was over 10 years ago now. Dimple just ran straight behind the sofa and was like, "This is my house now, I'm not coming out." And then Haig was just, I don't know where Haig went, he probably just went over to say hi to us or something. And he was also like, "Yeah, this is my house now, I'm not going anywhere." So the man could clearly see they were happy where they were. Dimple was a very nervous cat when he first came to us, hence why he hid behind the sofa. It was obviously quite stressful going to a new place. But I looked behind the sofa to find Dimple. I could see him. He was slowly blinking at me, which is a good sign, by the way. Cats slowly blinking means that they're showing you, that they're not threatened, and that they're not a threat themselves, basically. If you slow blink at a cat, you're showing them that you're not a threat. And obviously, he came closer to me, and then he rubbed up against me a little bit, and obviously I gave him a bit of a stroke. He seemed quite hesitant, actually, so they were rescue cats, for reference, so we think something's probably happened to him in the past. I don't really want to think about what could have happened to him, but the main thing is, now, he really is a family cat. And Haig's just been always that family cat. He's either, not been hurt like Dimple was, or that's just how they naturally are. Because it's like people, you get people who are naturally more nervous, more anxious, and you get people who just really don't care, and people who are just pretty much fearless. Or they seem to be. No one's fearless. But yeah, I'm definitely closer to Dimple, because Dimple is he's like my soul cat, basically. Is that a thing? Well, if it's not a thing, I've just invented it. So yeah, I'm definitely closer to Dimple. But I love them both equally. They are both my special cats. I love them both equally. They're both my favourite, but I'm closer to Dimple. Rate your opinion on Samsung out of 10. Samsung in general, I probably won't be able to give a rating on that, because there's just so many branches you can go down. Samsung washing machines and washer dryers and tumble dryers, etc., I don't really know a lot about, so I can't give a legitimate rating on that. But based on design and how they look, I'd probably give it about a 7 or an 8 out of 10, maybe 7.5 out of 10. Mainly because they look quite nice, actually. Especially, I think the Autodose ones look quite nice as well, and the older ones, which I'll show you a picture of on the screen now. These ones look really good, and the Autodose ones, which I'll show you a picture of on the screen now, they look very good as well. So yeah, based on design alone, 7.5 out of 10. And Samsung phones, I don't personally like them. They're just a no from me. What else is Samsung? Don't know. I think I've gone through pretty much everything important. So yeah, my overall opinion on Samsung: their appliances are decent, they look good, but their phones are a no from me. So general rating, I'd probably average it out at about 5 or 6. So yeah. Do you like the Beko WMB 71643 PTE? That's this machine. And yes, I would absolutely love a 71643. I think that's the right model number. I would love one of those. 1600 RPM Beko. I've not seen a. I think it's brushed. Is that brushed? Does anyone know if that's brushed? I don't know. But either way, I've never seen a brushed 1600 RPM Beko before, if it is brushed. But even so, that's the only 1600 RPM Excellence I've seen out of the entire Excellence range. But there may be more, don't get me wrong, but that's just the only one I've seen out of the entire Excellence range. So yeah, I'd love one. Right, I'm gonna do 2 in 1 here. So, what was your childhood washing machine, and best machine you have ever owned? Now, these two are both the same answer. So, my childhood washing machine, which is also the best machine I've ever owned, is the Hotpoint WD420G, as well as the LG F14968D5. Because I had the WD420G when I was like really young, like between sort of, it would have been maybe 4 and 9, maybe 4 and 8, 4 and 9, about that length of time anyway, or maybe 3 and 9, maybe that 6-year period. But anyway, it was around then, and then when I was about, how old would I have been in 2015? About 11, I would have been then. Yeah, when we got it, I would have been 11. That was when we got the LG F14968E5, which is then even still my childhood machine, and we've still got it to this day, so that's good. So they are my 2 best machines I've ever owned, and my 2 childhood machines as well. And then there's another childhood machine, which is the WDAL 8640G, and I've already spoken about that, so yeah, let's not go into detail about that again. Have you ever thought about making Beko 1600? I have actually. I thought about making it 16. Well, actually, I thought about making it 1400 because it's got a 1400 RPM tub in it. 1600 may be pushing it a little. It may cause the spider to fracture and break prematurely. But 1400 I was thinking of definitely. But to be realistic, a new PCB would probably just cost more than a second-hand 1600 RPM Beko itself. I don't know that for certain, but sometimes you can get Beko, or just wash machine in general, for quite cheap when they only need like a quick fix-up. Because there's nothing actually, like, you can still use our Beko, it's perfectly usable. But I don't think I would change the PCB on that Beko. But in the future, definitely changing machine spin speeds would be a good reason to replace the PCB. So I'll definitely do more of that in future, modifying washing machines and stuff like that. But for now, I'm going to keep the Beko as 1200 and maybe get a similar model, but make it 1600. So yeah, good question that one actually. What's your opinion on the new Miele's and older ones like the W1000s, etc.? Miele, I wouldn't say it's my favourite, but I wouldn't say it's the worst either. I suppose it entirely depends on what model you decide for, but I'd probably not want to own one in one of my dream washrooms. Although maybe the W3985, maybe that one, because that one looks quite nice. But yeah, they're decent. Like, not my favourite, but not the worst. Another short one. What's your name? My name is Cookie. Who is your favourite washer YouTuber? I think I've already answered this. My favourite washer YouTuber is WitchWasher2007, just because of the wide range of things he does, and just because of the amount of machines he has. Like, you'll never get bored just looking through his channel, finding things to watch. And mainly because he's the first one I found as well. So yeah, definitely worth looking at if you've never watched his videos before. Do you think I'm a good YouTuber? That was asked by the washer guy. And I think you're all good YouTubers. And I think it takes a lot to do what you are interested in on YouTube, especially when a lot of people don't understand it and don't like quite get the fascination behind washing machines and stuff, for example. So yeah, well done on coming out of your expressing yourself a bit. So yeah, I'm proud of you all. Keep doing what you're doing, and you'll get to accomplish your dreams one day. Why do you have 2 washers? Well, actually, this is quite a simple answer. One of them is here at my carers, and then one of them is at mum and dad's. So that's the reason I have two at the moment. I do, however, want a lot more than just two. So obviously from November, as you know, I'll be starting to collect washing machines, and the Beko will be disappearing off my channel, and a lot more will hopefully be coming in. Obviously not all at once. I think two is what I'm planning on bringing in November, and then just one every, maybe one every half a year after that, or maybe one every quarter of a year. I don't know. Depends. We'll see how things are as time goes on. So yeah, stick around and you'll see much more machines and many more stress tests. Do you like the new Bekos and the Beko Aquatech? I think Beko Aquatech is, I don't know, I'm kind of indifferent about Beko's Aquatech. I mean, it's a cool thing to have, like the blue paddle in the drum, but I feel like that if one's going to be blue, they all should be blue. Like, they all should be Aquatech paddles rather than just one of them being it. But that just might be me wanting it to be even across the drum, I don't know. But do I like the design of them? Yes, I think the design suits the Beko as well. I think it just works. It's one of those designs that just works. Do I like their programming? I don't know much about their programming. Would I prefer it if they were brushed? Yes, I would prefer it if they were brushed, but obviously we're all moving to inverter now, all these washing machine companies, so that probably won't happen. But do I like them overall? Yeah, I think they're pretty decent, so yeah, there's your answer. How old is your Beko? 7 years and 7 months old, because it's got a date of November 2013 on it. So yeah, it's pretty old, and it's doing really well considering it's never had a replacement part. So yeah. Where was the Beko bought? I don't actually know. And the reason I don't know is because I only came here 1 year and a few months ago. So about a year and a quarter ago was when I first saw the Beko, and yeah, I've pretty much been using it since then. And yeah, so I didn't know that it was here obviously until a year and a quarter ago. And I'll answer the next question in the same in this part as well. Why did you buy it? Was it best price and performance? I don't know. I guess it was something to do with something must have stood out to my carers about it, because obviously she ended up picking it in the end. So yeah, there's your answer. What would you rate the Beko's performance and quality out of 10? Let's start with quality. So it's survived pretty long. It's survived 8 years of normal use, and we've only just started to have the shock absorbers die, and that's been within about maybe the past 4 or 5 months. So still 7.5 years we've got use out of it before it started to die. So I'd give that a 9 out of 10, or maybe an 8. Let's go 8 out of 10 for that one. Performance, I think I'll give it an 8 out of 10 as well, because it can remove most things. Like, it's removed a pen ink stain before, but it won't remove a tomato stain, unfortunately. So yeah, 8 out of 10 in both. So yeah, decent performance. What brand is your LG's PCB? I don't actually know. I've never had the LG apart, and it doesn't tell me anywhere in the specs or the manual or anything. So yeah, can't tell you, I'm afraid. Yeah, no, can't tell you. Sorry about that. How many machines do you plan on getting? I don't know, maybe about... I probably have about maybe between 8 and 10 at once, for the time being. And then obviously when I get a bigger place, like when I move into my own place, in probably a few years' time, I will probably end up getting a lot more, maybe in the hundreds, maybe, like Witchwasher has at the moment. But yeah, for the moment, basically less than 15, maybe, in the next few years. So yeah, but I don't actually know the exact number, so stay tuned and you'll find out. What is the brand that you hate the most? I don't hate any brand. I think that all brands are good in their own way, and they all have their own weaknesses, they all have their own strengths, and they all come up with brilliant new inventions that we might not have even thought of before. On the other hand, fan bases of brands I have to say there is one brand I really don't like the fan base of, and I'm going to name it, it's Bosch. I don't like the Bosch fan base because they act like Bosch is the only machines on the market that actually do their job when they are really not. There's a lot of other machines which are equal to, if not better, than some of the Bosch machines out there. But it's not dependent on the brand, it's dependent on the machine. So the fan base, yeah, that's bad. But does that mean the brand's bad? No, by no means. It doesn't mean... You can't say just because the fan base is bad that the brand's bad. I happen to think some Bosch machines actually are pretty decent looking, and some are actually quite cool, and I do want some of them, as which may surprise you. But yeah, no, I don't hate any brands, I just hate the fan bases sometimes. Do you like Gorenje? What do you think about them? Now, Gorenje is actually owned by Hisense, so they're sold as Hisense in the UK. And yes, I do like Hisense and Gorenje. I think they're quite nice machines. I like a lot of different ranges, actually, a lot of different machines from Hisense and Gorenje. I have my eye on one. I have my eye on a few actually, but I have my eye mainly on one, and the other ones will be backups in case this one gets sold out before I decide to get it, which will probably be next year. So yeah, I think they're pretty good. They seem to have good performance. I don't know much about their programming. I've not really seen them that much. I know people who have got them, but obviously I don't want to spoil anything for myself, so I'm not really paying attention to the videos that much. But yeah, no, they seem like pretty good machines, so yeah, I think I'll be very pleased when I get one, and I think I'll like it. Did you ever own a Service or Maloney machine? I don't think so. Unless Mum's one when when I was very young was a Service or Maloney, because we still don't know what brand that was. But yeah, I know Dad had a very old Hoover machine, which we don't know what one that was, but we don't know what one Mum's was before they moved in together with Dad's Hoover machine. So yeah, Mum's may well have been a Service on Maloney, but I don't know. As far from what I can remember, no, I've never owned one. So yeah. Biggest mistake you did in the Beko and in the LG? The Beko's is easy. Attempting the bath mat and fast wash test. I shouldn't have ever tried to attempt that in the Beko. I was there for 2 hours waiting for it to balance, and it went faster than you'd think it would go, the 2 hours. In the LG it's more difficult. I think the biggest mistake I did in the LG was I put a towel in it by accident. Well, I didn't put the towel in it by accident. I put a wet towel in it, and without I put it into service mode to try and put more water in it, and I accidentally let it spin up to about 400. But the shocks are so stiff that I didn't even move the cabinet when I did that. But that did frighten me, that I thought that I might break it. But no, it was just a bit noisy, and it didn't vibrate at all pretty much. The drum was shaking like that much though, which is very hard to do for my particular machine. They're incredibly stiff suspension, but yeah. So biggest mistake in the Beko, bath mat fast wash test. Biggest mistake in the LG, accidental service mode spin. What age roughly did you start to like washers? Pretty much since I was born. Like from much further back than I can remember. The only way I know it is because Mum told me that I used to go and put my head into the door glass area of the machine while it was spinning and just watch it go round and round and round. So yeah, no, pretty much from when I was born, or at least when I was about a few weeks old, I'd crawl over to it. Pretty much as soon as I could crawl, I was crawling over to it. Your favourite brand? The best one in your opinion, not a list. I like how they had to specify not a list, in the assumption that I would make a list, which, to be fair, is probably not far from the truth. I would have probably listed about 3 or 4 of them. But since it's the best one, I'm going to go with LG. LG, I think, have to be my favourite brand, just for anything at the moment. So, yeah, LG is the answer to that one. What is the worst machine that you would love to own? by that they mean what's the most hated machine that I would love to own. I have to say MIDI-owned bushes. They're not as hated as some other machines. I'm going to give it between 3 machines. I'm going to give it between the new Hotpoints. I'd love to own a new Hotpoint. Vestel, just any Vestel. People really don't like Vestel because apparently they're really cheap and poor quality, which to be fair isn't far from the truth. They are really cheap, but quality I don't know about because I've never actually seen one in real life. And MIDI-owned bushes, like just apparently they're really cheap and really bad at balancing and everything like that. I'm going to ignore that and I'm going to just get one of whatever I want to. And yeah, I'm just going to take my own word for it and no one else's. So yeah, that's the worst machine, or the most hated machine that I'd like to own